Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are diving deep into the world of case report forms, or CRFs.
CRFs.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
Well, we get a lot of questions about CRS, especially from people who are thinking about becoming a CRA.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
we thought it'd be a good idea to, really break it down.
Right, get into the nitty-gritty,
Exactly.
nuts and bolts.
Because CRFs are really like the foundation of clinical research, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, how we collect all that crucial data that tells us whether a new treatment is safe and effective.
It's like, think of it like building a house.
Okay.
The CRFs are the bricks and mortar, you
I
know?
like that analogy.
Each CRF is like a brick, and each data point that we collect is like a piece of mortar holding it all together.
And if those bricks are weak, or the mortar is crumbly,
Oh.
a whole structure falls apart.
Exactly. You can't have a solid house without good bricks and mortar, and you can't have reliable research without good CRFs.
And that's where CRAs come in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones who are really on the front lines, making sure that those CRFs are accurate and complete.
They're like the quality control inspectors,
Oh, yeah?
making sure that everything is up to code.
So what kinds of things is a CRA looking for when they're reviewing a CRF?
Well, first and foremost, they're looking for any errors or inconsistencies in the data.
Like typos or missing information?
Exactly. Like if a patient's age is listed as 200 years old,
Whoa,
that's probably a red flag.
I say so.
Or if there's missing information about a key part of the treatment.
That could really skew the results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So CRAs need to be really detail-oriented and have a sharp eye for spotting those kinds of errors.
It sounds like a pretty demanding job,
It can be, but it's also incredibly important.
because ultimately it's all about patient safety, right?
Right. If the data in a CRF is inaccurate, it could have serious consequences for patients.
That's why regulatory bodies like the FDA and EMA have such strict guidelines for CRFs.
Absolutely. They need to be designed and managed in a way that ensures data quality and reliability.
And CRAs play a key role in making sure those standards are met.
They're like the guardians of the data,
The data guardians.
protecting it from harm,
I like.
making sure it's used responsibly and ethically.
And all of that starts with the CRF.
Exactly.
So let's talk a bit more about what actually goes into a CRF.
Okay, sure.
What kind of information are we talking about here?
Well, it varies depending on the specific trial,
Okay.
but in general, you'll find things like demographics.
Okay, so age, gender, ethnicity, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yep.
Then there's medical history.
Past illnesses,
Yeah.
current medications, allergies,
All that good stuff.
and then, of course, information about the treatment itself.
Right, the dosage, the frequency, any side effects that occur.
So CRAs need to be familiar with all these different components of a CRF,
Absolutely.
and they need to understand how to spot potential problems, right?
Right, like let's say a CRF asks about a patient's smoking history, but the response options are only yes or no.
That seems a bit limited.
Exactly. What if the patient is a former smoker?
Oh, good point.
A good CRA would notice that and suggest adding more response options.
To make sure the data is as accurate and complete as possible.
Right, because even small details like that can make a big difference in the overall analysis.
So it's not just about checking boxes, it's about really understanding the data and how it all fits together.
Exactly. CRAs need to be able to see the big picture.
Kind of like detectives piecing together a puzzle,
Exactly. They're looking for clues.
trying to make sense of all the information.
And ultimately, to ensure that the trial is conducted with the highest standards of quality and integrity.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is.
But it's also incredibly rewarding.
Knowing that your work is helping to advance medical knowledge and potentially save lives.
And that all starts with the CRF.
The humble CRF.
Not so humble when you think about it.
It's the foundation of it all.
And CRAs are the ones who make sure that foundation is strong.
They're the unsung heroes of clinical research,
Well said.
working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that the data we collect is accurate and reliable.
And that's why it's so important for anyone who's interested in becoming a CRA to really understand the ins and outs of CRFs.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental part of the job.
And it's only going to become more important as clinical trials continue to evolve,
Especially with the rise of new technologies and data sources.
which is something we'll be talking about in more detail later in this deep dive.
Oh yeah, we've got a lot more to cover.
We've only just scratched the surface.
But for now, let's take a quick break.
And when we come back, we'll delve even deeper into the world of CRS and explore the exciting challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for aspiring CRAs.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
So we've talked about like the basics of CRFs, the what and the why.
Right, like why they're so important in clinical research.
Exactly. And how CRAs are like the guardians of data quality.
Yeah, making sure everything is accurate and reliable.
But there's a whole other layer to this that we haven't really touched on yet.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, it's the fact that CRFs are not static documents.
Hmm. What do you mean by that?
I mean, they can change.
Change.
Yeah, throughout the course of a trial.
Wait, you can actually change a CRF after the trial's already started?
Exactly. It's called a CRF amendment.
CRF amendment. Huh, I've never heard of that.
It happens more often than you might think.
So why would you need to amend a CRF?
Well, there are a few reasons.
Okay.
Sometimes we realize that we're not collecting all the information we need.
Like we missed a key data point
Exactly. Or maybe the way a question is worded is confusing.
and leading to inaccurate data.
Right. Or maybe new information comes to light that requires us to track additional data.
So it's all about adapting to the evolving needs of the trial.
Precisely. CRFs are living documents. They need to be flexible enough to accommodate new information and changing circumstances.
But I imagine there's a lot of red tape involved in amending a CRF.
Absolutely. It's a very controlled process.
Like you can't just go in and make changes willy-nilly.
No way any changes to a CRF need to be carefully documented, reviewed, and approved by all relevant parties.
And communicated clearly to the research sites
Exactly. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
to avoid any confusion or inconsistencies in the data.
Right, because even a small change to a CRF can have a ripple effect throughout the entire trial.
So CRAs must play a key role in this whole amendment process.
Absolutely. They're the ones who are often responsible for implementing the changes at the research sites.
Making sure everyone understands the new instructions and is collecting the data correctly.
And they also need to be on the lookout for any potential problems that might arise from the amendments.
Like if the new data is not being collected consistently across all sites.
Exactly. That's why good communication is so important.
CRAs need to be able to explain the changes clearly and answer any questions that come up.
And they also need to be able to troubleshoot any problems that arise.
Sounds like a lot to juggle.
It can be, but that's what makes the job so challenging and rewarding.
So we've talked about errors and amendments. What other challenges do CRAs face when it comes to managing CRFs?
Well, one of the biggest headaches is dealing with missing data.
Missing data. Why is that such a problem?
Because it can really mess up your analysis.
Like if you're trying to compare two groups of patients.
Right. But one group has a lot of missing data for a key variable.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Exactly. You can't get a clear picture of what's going on.
So how do CRAs deal with missing data?
Well, the first step is to try to prevent it from happening in the first place.
Okay, so how do you do that?
By designing CRFs that are clear and easy to understand.
And by providing good training to the research staff.
Exactly. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to collect complete and accurate data.
But even with the best of intentions, sometimes data goes missing.
Right. People forget things, forms get lost, mistakes happen.
So then what?
Well, then the CRA has to try to track down the missing information.
Like going back to the source documents?
Exactly. Medical records, lab reports, that kind of thing.
And if you can't find the missing data,
Then you have to decide how to handle it in your analysis.
and there are different ways to do that, right?
Yeah, it depends on the specific situation.
Like how much data is missing and why it's missing.
Right. Sometimes you can just exclude the patients with missing data from your analysis.
But that can reduce the power of your study.
Exactly. So sometimes you might need to use more sophisticated statistical techniques to account for the missing data.
Like imputation,
Yeah, exactly.
where you use statistical models to estimate the missing values.
It's a way of filling in the gaps without introducing bias into your data.
But it's important to do it correctly.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to understand the assumptions behind the different imputation methods.
And choose the one that's most appropriate for your data.
Otherwise, you could end up with misleading results.
So dealing with missing data is a real art form.
It requires a combination of detective work, statistical knowledge, and good judgment.
And CRAs are right at the forefront of that.
They're the ones who are responsible for ensuring that the data we use to make decisions about new treatments is as complete and accurate as possible.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is, but it's also a privilege to be involved in such important work.
I agree. It's amazing to think about the impact that CRAs have on the development of new therapies.
Yeah, they're helping to shape the future of medicine.
And all of that starts with the CRF.
The often overlooked but absolutely essential CRF.
It's the foundation of clinical research,
And CRAs are the guardians of that foundation.
making sure it's strong and sturdy enough to support the weight of new discoveries.
And as we move into the future of clinical research, CRFs and the role of the CRA are only going to become more important.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear more about that.
Well, that's what we'll be talking about when we come back from the break.
We'll be diving into the exciting world of eCRFs and exploring how technology is transforming the role of the CRA.
So stay tuned.
And we are back for the final part of our deep dive into the world of CRFs. We've talked about, like, the importance of data quality, and the challenges that CRAs face.
Right, like dealing with errors, amendments, missing data.
Exactly. But now I kind of want to look ahead.
Yeah.
Like, what's next for CRFs?
Well, the future is definitely digital.
Digital.
Yeah, we've already seen a shift towards eCRF.
Right, those electronic CRFs.
Exactly, and that trend is only going to continue.
So what does that mean for CRAs? I mean, how will their job change?
Well, for one thing, they'll need to be even more tech savvy.
Tech savvy.
Yeah, they'll need to be comfortable working with electronic data capture systems.
Also, like, navigating those systems, running queries, analyzing data.
Exactly, and they'll need to be able to do all of that quickly and efficiently.
Because in the digital world, everything moves faster.
Exactly.
So it's not just about having a keen eye for detail anymore.
Right. It's about being able to use technology to your advantage.
To streamline the data management process.
Exactly, and to make sure that the data is as accurate and reliable as possible.
Now, it's not just about the technology, right?
Right.
CRAs still need to have those core skills we talked about earlier.
Absolutely, like critical thinking, problem-solving communication.
Because at the end of the day, it's still about people.
Yeah, it's about ensuring that clinical trials are conducted ethically and responsibly.
And that the data we collect is used to improve patient care.
Exactly. So while technology is definitely changing the landscape of clinical research,
It's not replacing the human element.
no way CRAs will always be essential.
They're the ones who make sure that the data tells the right story.
And that the story leads to better treatments and cures.
Well said.
So if you're thinking about a career as a CRA,
Now's a really exciting time to get involved.
yeah, the field is constantly evolving.
There's always something new to learn.
And you'll have the opportunity to make a real difference in the world.
And all of that starts with understanding the humble CRF.
CRF.
It's the foundation of clinical research,
And CRAs are the guardians of that foundation.
working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that the data we collect is accurate, reliable, and ultimately meaningful.
So to all the aspiring CRAs out there,
We salute you,
keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
because the future of clinical research is in your hands.
And it's a future filled with incredible potential.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today.
Time flies when you're having fun with CRFs.
It really does. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of CRFs.
And thanks to our expert for sharing their insights.
We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic.
Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions.
That's what the deep dive's all about.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.